Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, September the 21st. Hey, we've got our usual crew today. We've got Tom, Lee, Josh, and Gentry going to spit some knowledge on their favorite bodies of water. Well, favorites, relative term if they're biting, right? Anyway, we'll be right back with what the guys have to say. Hey, we're joined by our good friend and Guntersville expert, Tom Mott. Tom, what's going on the Big Lake?
Well, I'm trying to find that expert out there right now. But hey, things are changing. Definitely getting a lot better out there on the lake. I think right now, I was talking to a young man yesterday that's going to fish a big tournament today, and we got to go in, and I told him be prepared to do everything. Throw a frog, pitch a little bit of, maybe a heavy jig. And also be able to throw a worm, drag a jig a little bit through some grass, maybe even some deeper spots. Throw ball and chain, get it out on some hard spots, out there a little bit. But I think right now the best bet is just to be very versatile. Start off. I like to start off in the grass myself, and I've been catching some fish out there, and they're starting to get larger. I'm starting to see a lot of bait get out there in that grass, but I'm not seeing big concentrations yet. You might go down a stretch of grass or a stretch of fishing area and catch 4 or 5 smaller fish and then catch one decent keeper. But it's getting slowly better, and I think the longer we get these cooler nights, the days are getting shorter. The activity is just going to really start to pick up. And I know the tournament scene's kind of coming on right now, this part of the fall, and the cheese is getting out there. The rat fish are going, the flipping fish are going. But you're just going to have to be patient, kind of move around a little bit.
Yeah, it's that kind of time of the year where junk fishing is key. You're kind of all over the place, do a little bit of everything. You might catch one on this, one on that, one on this. What about the other species? Are the crappie starting to kick off yet?
Absolutely. The crappie are starting to get around the bridges a little bit more, but they're still a little deep. Generally when you get around the pylons, they're only be in that 4 to 5 foot of water, but they're still a little deep. They're still feeding on all that bait that's coming through there. But something tells me this is going to be a banner year for the crappie. It's going to happen a little bit earlier than normal. So I'm thinking probably sometime mid-October to late October, it's going to just be Katie bar the door as far as the crappie go. It's just a lot of fish out there right now.
What about the stripe? Are you seeing stripe moving around out there and schooling on some of those shad?
There's a bunch of white bass, yellow bass, largemouth that are just schooling everywhere. I say everywhere. You got to pick your areas, but I've seen it mostly on humps, backside of the river channel, things of that nature. And, you can catch those fish. A lot of times you can catch some really nice largemouth under a school of white bass. So you got a kid, you want to go out there, throw something on the top, let them catch those, and then get you something that's going to drop under them. Maybe an underspin or something a little heavier that you can get through that school. But they're pretty aggressive right now, so it's a lot of fun when you run across them, sure enough.
Tom, thank you for everything, brother. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week. Hey, we got our good friend Lee Pitts here. He is hanging out. He is on Weiss Lake a little bit today, working on some things. Let's start at Neely Henry, though, because I know you spent some time down there.
Yeah, Neely's looking good. It's, we've had a little bit of taste of summer come back on us some. Water temperature is still that mid 70 to upper 70s, so the fish they know it's time to start moving, so they're trying to get up on some of these shallower points. Really liking some wood cover right now. I fished a little bit and trying to kind of just tune it in a little bit of what they're really wanting, and it seems to be small baits. I've got out there in some of the deeper water. I've tried to crank. I've tried to throw some bigger jigs. And right now, especially at Neely, they're wanting that either shaky head. They're starting to pick up a jig a little bit, so that's good. I've been throwing a biffle bug some and just something to cover water with and getting bit on it. So the water's starting to change a little bit. Things are looking better. The fish are starting to react to some of these harder bottoms and still getting on that wood cover.
So are you having to flip like baby D-bombs and smallie beavers and stuff like that? Is that the direction you're having to go?
No, on my plastics now, I can still kind of pitch the same type stuff, but it's with my weights. I'm downsizing my weights, downsizing line a little bit, and I think that's giving it a more natural fall. And just kind of slowing down seems to be the key. Back when they really get aggressive and really get on it, you can kind of just pick and choose and really make 2 or 3, pitch it in there, make 2 or 3 little hops with it, come on back out. Now you're letting it soak a little bit. You're letting it get in there and not really being lethargic with it, but instead of those long strokes, I'm just really kind of getting little tight little strokes on that thing to kind of just keep it in the strike zone as long as I can.
What about the crappie at Neely real quick? Are they starting to move?
They're getting on the docks, and it's something I've talked to a lot of the guys. The deeper docks. When I say deeper, we're talking about the Coosa. We're not talking about 10, 12 foot deep. The 4, 6, 8 foot docks, when you can find that, the crappie are really starting to get in that shade. We've had a little bit of heat the last couple of days, so that's really, the sun's been out real bright and it's pushed them up underneath these docks. Been doing a lot of work with some of the new jig heads with Garland. It's that brush off. It's got the little bit, the little piano wire on it that kind of, you can really get it deep in the heart of some of these brush tops and some of these tree tops. And the fish are there in there deep. So you get that bait in there to them, they don't have to chase it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Weiss, they're starting to move towards the docks too, but the water's still down. But hey, we ran out of time this time. I guess we'll touch on it next week. Hey, we got our man Gentry Gordy going to talk a little bit of Lake Martin and Jordan Lake. You pick, Gentry. Where do you want to start today?
Let's start at Martin, Dano, just because my dad went up there the other day. I got a little more information on Martin. Hadn't had a chance to go to Jordan, but I'm going to tell you what I think they're doing, what they should be doing. But Martin, when I talked to him, he just, it was a cool day. The wind was blowing, but it was tough on him. The top water bite wasn't really there. Missed a couple. Still had to go to more of your summertime patterns, which I didn't think would happen. I thought maybe a top water, shallow water bite would be, coming along with the weather trend we've had, and a little bit of rain. But the water on Martin is falling, so like any lake, it's going to start pushing those fish out until it stabilizes. So it was more of the end of docks. Caught a few. He said he caught a few on a jerk bait. But the end of your docks, a little bit deeper brush piles, the 8 to 12, and even deeper. But he said anything shallower than about 7 or 8 feet just really couldn't get bit. Saw a couple of saw a couple small fish here and there, but nothing you really want to target.
Yeah. Well, that's at the time of the year when that water starts falling, especially on some of those steep bluffs. Those fish move vertically up and down, suspend a little bit. So that's the way you got to target them. Did he see any crappie out there? Is there anything going on with that you know of?
Well, he just got the 360 put on his boat, so he was playing with that. So I think on some of them deeper brush piles, them crappie were there because he was like, man, I saw some fish. I see a trash pile with the 360 and put the live on it, but I couldn't get them to bite. It's probably crappie.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah. So I think your deeper brush piles are probably holding some crappie, but he was frustrated they wasn't bass.
All right, so let's move to Jordan Lake. What are we hearing out of there?
It's bait fish. You'll see them. They're in the pockets. It's a lot like last time. They'll come up, but man, if you're not holding your top water plug ready, it's hard to get them to bite. Flipping the grass, they're still there. I mean, the grass is not dying off yet. Eventually, it's going to start dying off. But they're still in there. It may be a morning time thing. You may find it in the heat of the day. Maybe a late afternoon thing. You just, you got to play with the grass to figure out the window them fish pull up in there. Other than that, of course, upriver, we hadn't had some rain this week, really, a little bit. So probably going to be back to the early morning, late afternoon when they start pulling. That's when I'd run up there. Other than that, it's still going to be your creek ditches and really following that bait fish as they start to push back into those creeks.
And have a bunch of different things ready to throw on the deck as they show
Absolutely.
up. Gentry, as always, brother, we appreciate it. Thanks for all that you do, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend. Hey, we're joined by Josh Heron, the mastermind behind Tato Designs and so many other things in this business, but he's also avid fisherman down there on Logan Martin and Lay Lake. Josh, let's start at Lay Lake right now. I know guys are starting to really work on that championship down there for Alabama Bass Trail. So what's going on that lake?
Man, like I said last week, it's not a lot of change. We got a little bit of rain, a little bit of watercolor. Alabama Power blew that out and through pretty quick. So we're kind of right back in the same deal. I think a lot of these fishers, they're kind of in a holding pattern. They're waiting on these nights to get a little cooler. So you got a lot of fish that are still sitting up outside these main creek mouths. When we get a little river flow, especially the spots, they're kind of pushing up in some of these shallower cuts on the upper end of the lake. But for the most part, on the bottom end, you're still going to have a lot of fish staged out in timber, staged on brush. Like I said, I think they're picking their windows of the day where they're kind of feeding up shallow, but for the most part, they're kind of laid off the front edge of a lot of that stuff and kind of just sitting there waiting. It's really hard to kind of pattern these fish and target them with no current outside of just roaming and looking for them. It doesn't really set them up to where you can pattern them in around.
Probably going to have to do a little vertical fishing and some forward-facing sonar stuff down around that standing timber right now, I bet. And that's probably going to play in the tournament. Okay, let's talk
absolutely.
Logan Martin. Let's talk Logan Martin. I know that tends to be a little bit easier. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, Logan, it set us up completely different. So, like the bottom end of Logan, you can fish kind of like the bottom end of the lake minus the timber because there's so much brush down there that you're never going to run out of stuff to throw at. The upper end of the lake is kind of where I tend to like to fish. The grass bites, you're on your tail end of it. It's fading out and gone. But you're still gonna roll into like a whopper plopper, a buzz bait, spinner bait, chatter bait. You're gonna like the moving baits are gonna start being a more dominant factor in the coming weeks, and with these nights cooling off, you're gonna start seeing a ton of shad ball up in this river, and get ready to make its natural migration. The very tail end or the very head end of the lake is probably where it's more consistent at than anywhere. Just for the fact you get the little burst of river current throughout the day, whatever, coming off the dam, and those fish set up on those natural shoals out in the middle of the river.
Yep, and I bet you right now you're going to go out and look for crappie on some of the ends of those docks and deeper brush piles, and I bet you could still find a bluegill or something around in some of those pockets.
Absolutely.
Josh, as always, brother. What's that?
I said it's Logan Martin. There's always something to catch, whether it's a striper, a catfish, a bluegill, a crappie.
I got you. Brother, we appreciate everything, man. As always, we'll talk to you again next week. Well, that'll wrap up our Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, September the 21st. Thanks to all of you for spending the time that you do with us. We really appreciate it. We love bringing these reports to you, and we hope that they help put a few fish in your boat. Don't forget to stop on by Bucks Island. Fishing's starting to turn on a little bit. It's time for tournaments to kick off. You're looking for that tackle, go see the loft. Parts to keep your boat running or service, you can check in with Pat and the guys in there, or Misty and everybody down there in the service department. And of course, if you're looking for that dream boat, those market rates have started to come down, makes those boats a little bit more reachable. We're here to help you. You're the favorite part of our business. We appreciate you.